I'm Mary, and this is my kitchen, and I'd like to welcome you to Mary Stec's Coach in the Kitchen. That's my new project. Now, to introduce myself, I am a coach with Optavia, which is an amazing company, and I'm thinking that most of the people watching this video are familiar with Optavia as either a valued client or one of our amazing coaches. Now, just to give you a little background about myself, before I was a health coach, I was a culinary teacher and a chef. So when I began coaching, I kind of naturally brought in my skills as a cooking instructor with my new skills as a health coach. I integrated tips and recipes into our relationships, and it's really worked out really well. So now I just thought it's time to bring this out and have it available to everybody. So, and that is whether you're on program or not. So when I decided to do this, I reflected back on the most important parts of my culinary education. I remember leaving a course with newfound techniques, and those were the gems. Those were the things that elevated my passion and my desire to make wonderful dishes. Techniques like knife skills, or balancing flavors, or balancing textures, or plating in a beautiful way. So I decided that this course is not going to be a demo, it's going to be a class, which means it's going to be longer, and I am going to be teaching rather than just demoing. So you're going to hear me say things like on plan and transition and maintenance. Now, if you're not familiar with those terms, because you're not on the plan yet, go to optavia.com and find a coach who will share our program with you and see if it's a good fit for you, and get started on your own journey to living your healthiest, biggest life ever. So, without any more hesitation, let's get cooking. Okay, we're back. I'm behind the camera this time. So when you choose a recipe to do, the first thing you need to do is read it. There we are. You can see I've made notes on mine, and I always do. I add things and I jot things down that I want to remember. But I read through the entire recipe. That way I don't forget to turn the oven on. Okay, that has happened. The next thing is called mise en place. Now what that means is everything in its place. So as you go down the ingredients list, you measure everything, chop everything, and you put it in separate little bowls. Now the reason for this is because it's easier, it's faster, and you won't forget that all-important baking soda or baking powder in your cookies or cakes. I've done that myself. You don't want to do that. So I do everything in its place, and then I go over the list of ingredients again and make sure I have everything ready to go. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is chop that onion. I'll be right back. Okay, this is my very favorite thing to teach. It's how to cut an onion. Now, if you look at an onion, you'll see the stem end and the root end. It's very important to keep the root end intact because it's much easier to hold the product together in order to cut it easily. Now, a little word about knives. I think it's really important, guys, to invest into at least one good chef's knife. This one is a Japanese knife, and I love it. I love everything about it. It's balanced, it's lightweight, but not too light. It just works for me really well. There's an indentation here and here for my finger and my thumb. Most good knives will have that. Now, put a knife in your hand and see how it feels before you buy it, because it's quite an investment. They're not cheap, but it's worth it. Another couple of things about the knife is keep them sharp. We send our knives out yearly to have them professionally sharpened, and throughout the year I keep them sharpened on a steel. The most dangerous piece of equipment in your kitchen is a dull knife. it can really, really harm you because it just doesn't slide through. It slips and you can really nick yourself. The other important part about a knife is keep it clean. As soon as you use it, you wash it and dry it, because if you leave food or particles on the knife, it actually eats into the surface of the blade and it degrades the whole knife. So let's get going here. I'm going to place the onion down with the root end out this way and the stem end facing me, and make one cut like that. Okay? And we'll turn this up and get rid of this. Okay? Now, if you see that, can you see that? There's the root end. So I'm going to put my knife right in the middle of the root and press down. So that'll give me a half. Now, the next thing we do is peel it. Okay. Now, when I peel the onion, I normally keep this part attached. I like to use this as a handle when I start cutting towards the root end. Just makes it easier. Now, if you take a look, I'm going to make sure you see this. You can see these little ridges on the onion. That's kind of nature's way of telling you how it wants to be cut. Okay? So we're going to put the onion down here and start slicing. Now, watch my fingers. My fingers are not extended out this way. That's just asking for trouble. My fingers are sort of curled in, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to cut along these ridges, holding this together, making more cuts. Now, with my thumb and pinky, I'm going to grab the back of the onion, and again, I'll explain a little bit more about this. You never, ever, ever want to hold your product like this with the fingers out. Okay, the reason for that is because they're targets. You can cut yourself really easily. So the proper way to hold anything you're cutting is by rolling your fingers under and actually using your knuckles as a guide. It's pretty hard to cut anything if your knuckles are right there. And it also guides you when you're making thin slices. So again, my pinky and my thumb are holding the product down here. I've got my fingers rolled under, and I make my first slice. Okay? And then slice, and as I slice, I'm moving my hand back, pushing it a little forward with my thumb and pinky, but holding it together, using this as a guide, and I keep cutting like that. Now when I reach the end, I'm turning it up, and this is where my handle comes in handy. You can see I'm holding onto the handle and continue to cut, cutting, and it's done. See how easy that is? And discard that, and you can see we have some beautiful chopped onions in no time flat. Really, really easy. So let's begin. Now, when I found this recipe, I had to make a few little adjustments for it to fit in and qualify as a lean and green. Now, what that means is it's for our clients who are in the first phase of the program, which is called the fat burn or the weight loss phase. And I'm going to be publishing this recipe with a little extra added fat for those who are in the transition and the maintenance. So you can see you can find any kind of recipe you want and just make those little simple adjustments to make it work for you no matter where you are in the program. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, because this is fat burn phase or lean and green, I'm going to use the olive oil spray instead of regular olive oil. So we'll just spray a little bit of olive oil spray in there. Now, what I love about cooking is that it really involves all of the senses. What I mean by that is that you can taste it, you can smell it, you can touch it, hold it, feel it, you can see it, and when you're cooking, you can actually hear it. Now, as this oil is heating up a little bit, We're going to look for that sizzle when I drop the onions and celery in it, and maybe we're going to be able to hear that luscious sound when it hits the pan. You ready? Let's see if this works. Do you hear that? I love that sound. So now we have taste, sight, smell, what was it? Feel, and we can hear it. So I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit on this, and while this is getting to the transparent or translucent state, and I'll show you what that means, I'm going to show you a few more tricks on cutting and using the knife. Okay, so I'm going to move this over slightly. The first thing I'm going to show you is just basic chopping, and I'm using a little bit of celery here. So the first thing you do is get them kind of lined up all together at this end. Now, again, I'm using my chef's knife. It's basically my go-to knife for everything I do. And I want to put the tip of the knife on the board. I'm going to turn it so you can see this. So I'm going to put the tip of the knife on the board, and I never lift the tip off the board. It always just slides like this and makes the cut. So I'm holding this with my fingers safely curled under, and I begin cutting like this in a pushing motion, never taking the tip off the board. So you can see it can go really, you can get pretty good at it and go pretty fast, and you get tiny little pieces. They're all in uniform shape because your knuckle, that knuckle is guiding you along again. Remember I told you about that? Now, another thing I'll show you is garlic. Now, when a recipe calls for 2 cloves of garlic, you can get a nice plump clove, and suddenly all you have left is a tiny little clove or maybe a couple of tiny cloves. Well, I like to go heavier on the garlic than light. I would probably put another clove with this and call that 2 cloves. That's just me because I love garlic. So the first thing, again, just like the onion, it has a root end and a stem end. So you want to cut that root end off first. I lift it, start peeling that paper off. And then there's 2 ways that you can take the peel off, and they're both pretty easy. One is that you give your garlic a whack like that, and the peel just comes right off. I happen to like gadgets. My whole kitchen is filled with gadgets. This is called a garlic peeler. You just stick it in here, roll it, and you can put 2 or 3 cloves in at the same time, and it just drops out and you can see what happens. So that's really yummy. Now, when you look at a garlic, this happens to be homegrown garlic. We grow the stiff neck. This is stiff neck garlic, and it's really, really good. I'm going to give this a little stir. When you have your garlic and you look at the top end, do you see that little circle right there? That's kind of the garlic trying to grow a new garlic in there. So I like to take that out. I'm not crazy about it. I think it's a little bit bitter. So when you open it up, just put your thumb here and you lift that thing out. Let's see if this one's being harder to lift out. It's being a little knotty. And then the other side, do the same thing, and that comes out very easily. And I just throw that away. When I smash the garlic like this, I just open it up and take that little piece out. That comes out. Okay? Now when you want to chop your garlic, again, it's the same technique. Put your knife point on the board, keep your fingers rolled under, and slice, moving your knife forward. It's always a forward motion. Okay? Then we can turn it around and do more of a chop. Now when you do a chop like this, again, the tip always stays on the board. Put your hand on the end of the tip, and you really don't have to apply a lot of pressure. You just use the natural weight of the knife. I'm barely holding on to it here, if you can see. So I'm just going back and forth, scraping it, bringing it together, and I'm doing more of a chop like that. Bring it together and chopping it. And it makes it really, really easy. Simple. See? Nice little pieces. Now, this recipe has some sage in it, and I'm going to give this another stir again. I wish you could smell this kitchen right now. It's so nice. So this recipe has some sage, and I got really tiny sage leaves, so I couldn't really show you how to do this. I did it for this dish, but it was just too small to do it for camera. Now, I just want to add something to before we go on. You can use dried herbs and herbs if you want. I prefer fresh. They're just so more flavorful. I love the different little pieces in the foods. You bite down and you get a little piece of thyme or a little piece of rosemary with a burst of flavor. That's just my preference. You can absolutely use ground dried herbs if you want. I like it fresh. So when you're cutting leaves like this or sage, you just kind of pile it on. You put the biggest one on the bottom, and you work up for the smaller ones on top. And then I just roll it like a cigar and use my knife again the same way. Okay, I just push it. I go down and I'm pushing with my thumb and protecting my fingers, and then just do a simple little chop. And you see, you get some just beautiful little pieces. So it's so easy to use fresh herbs, and it's just so much, I think it's so much better. Now, for other leafy products, like the parsley. Now, I always use Italian parsley. I just like it better. It's a little sweeter and a softer flavor. But I don't want to sit here and pull out leaf after leaf like this. It's kind of boring. So here's a trick. Hold on to the stems, lay the product down, and run your knife down like that. Okay? And look what you're left with, just the stems. It's really easy. Then when you have many little leaves like this, I'm going to take off. Well, it looks pretty good. When you have many little leaves like this, bunch them up. Make them into a tight little wad. And then again, protecting your fingers. Can you see that? Do the same process that you did with the others. Holding with your fingers under, guiding with your knuckles, and moving that knife along. Once you get through the first cut, then you can go back to this process, cutting it evenly in small pieces. Super, super simple. See that? Super simple. Okay, so let's turn our camera a little bit this way, and it's time to put the garlic in. Now, why do we wait till we put the garlic in? Well, garlic can be pretty nasty when it burns, and it can be pretty delicious and yummy when it cooks slowly. Okay, so that's why always put your garlic in last and let it just cook off nicely. And we're going to let this cook for about 30 seconds. I'm going to clean my place and I'll be right back. Now the onions are done. I'm going to hold them real close to the camera. This is when they're translucent. You can see they're really glistening and sweet and soft and just luscious. So this is exactly how we want the onions to be. Now I'm going to put the stuffing together. In this bowl, I took about 10 or 12 mushrooms and cut them up in little pieces and just put them in a small pan with a little bit of chicken stock, probably 3 tablespoons, and just heated them up for 2 or 3 minutes just to get them soft. Okay, so I'm going to take the onions and plop them right in with the mushrooms. Okay. And then our beautiful fresh cut herbs and salt, some grinds of pepper, and this is the almond flour. Now almond flour has gotten really popular because it's perfect for gluten-free people. It's wonderful on the program. It's right in with the basic lean and green because it's so low in carbs. So I'm going to add that. Stir it all together. And there's your stuffing. It's as simple as that. So here's the star of the show. This is a half turkey breast. It weighs about 1 to 2 pounds. And it's been deboned and butterflied. That means it's been cut kind of on the horizontal and opened up a little bit. If you're adventurous and you want to look it up on YouTube, I'm sure you can find a lot of tutorials to show you how to do that. Otherwise, just buy it at the market and ask your butcher to take the bone out and butterfly it. That's what it's called. Now, when you get it home, it's a little thicker than this. So what I'd like you to do, I'm putting a piece of parchment on the top, and we want to pound it out as not as thin as possible, but we just want to get it pounded out a little bit so it's a little thinner. This has already been pounded out, so this is about the thickness you want. I just wanted to show you how to do that. And so the next thing we do is plop all of the stuffing right on top of the breast. Okay, it's pretty easy. Just spread it around, being generous with it, like that. I'm not sure we'll need all of this, but we'll see. Make it nice and rich inside here. Okay, that's good enough. So now we're going to turn this into the spiral roll. So taking your hands, and here's another tip about poultry. When you handle poultry, whether it's chicken or turkey, it's really, really important to keep your hands immaculately clean. Now, I will touch this product now, but I'm not going to touch a single other thing in my kitchen until I go to the sink and wash my hands with hot soapy water. A lot of times I'll actually use gloves that will give me even further protection. But hot soapy water for my hands, for everything that touches or anywhere, anything around the product. The board needs to be washed thoroughly. And it's not because this is for sure tainted with salmonella, but safety first, always, always. Okay, so we're going to start rolling this guy up, lifting him up and rolling him, making a nice spiral. Just kind of have to walk it along. And that's the tenderloin down there of the breast, and it's so yummy that I just wanted to keep it attached. So that's the roll, and I'm going to wash my hands, and I'll be right back. I'm going to show you how to tie this up, and then we're going to brown it off in the pan. Okay, I'm back. Now, as you can see, I've started tying up this roll. I took off that little piece of tenderloin that was kind of flopping around. It really wasn't necessary, and I just browned it off and had a little appetizer earlier. But I want to show you the technique. It's really simple to tie up a roll. If you want to get more complex, you can go online and see how the butchers do it. But I find this is just as easy. Now, I got this thicker twine in order to show you the tying. It would be easier for you to see, but as I'm using it, I really like it. It's nice and easy to work with, and I got this at my local Smart and Final, and super easy to find. So what I'm going to do is bring the two ends together, tie them up. Really easy to handle this thick twine, and voila. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is salt and pepper. And it's time to brown this off. I'm going to salt this side a little bit. Pepper. Okay, so I've got my pot ready. The oil, just a few teaspoons, like 3 teaspoons of oil in here. But I want to sear this. I want to get some color on the roll before we actually bake it in the oven. I'm going to put it in here. And there's that wonderful sound again. So I'm going to continue browning this off, turning it and letting it cook off. It's going to cook for about 5 to 7 minutes in the pan. And as soon as we're done, we'll continue. Isn't this pretty? Now, when you're browning off a piece of meat like this, you want to keep the flame a little higher than normal because you want to create some color on the surface, but not cook it all the way through. Now, this is a really important part to remember, guys. You're in control of that flame, so you can adjust it up and down according to what your needs are. If you see that a portion of this is getting too dark, turn your flame down a little bit. If you roll it over and you want to start searing a side that hasn't been seared yet, turn your flame back up. The secret to a good cook in a kitchen is the knowledge that that cook is in charge of the kitchen. The kitchen and the flame is not in control of the chef or the cook. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is start the gravy. Now, this is where the fun part came in for me, because when I ran the recipe by our nutrition department at Optavia, which comes free to clients on the program. I love this particular perk. You can just find a recipe, call them, send the recipe in, and they will give you the nutritional facts. And if there's something that will throw you out of fat burn, they'll tell you, like they told me, the apple cider is too high in carbs. It's going to throw your recent on-plan clients out of fat burn. So I had to put my chef's creative thinking cap on and figure out, how can I create the same apple flavor with the sweetness without the carbs and the calories? So I took myself to my computer, I looked up apple extracts, apple flavors, and I found this beautiful apple oil. Now, this is completely edible. It's food grade. And what I did is I put a few drops in water along with some stevia to make it sweet, and voila, I've now converted this recipe to that which will fit on the program and keep somebody in fat burn. How's that? That's so cool. Now, if you're not in fat burn and you're in transition maintenance, or you're not a client and you haven't become a client yet to get yourself healthy, then go ahead and feel free to use the apple cider. It's basically all the same. Now, I've got the heat turned up a little bit from the searing of my meat. And the next thing I'm going to do is brown off onions. Now, I'm not real worried about the amount of onions in the gravy recipe because we're going to strain it. And I did my research again. And all I'm really doing is pulling out the flavor of the onions. We're going to throw the onions themselves away. So the carbs are not going to be part of the gravy, and it's just going to impart this beautiful flavor. So My pan is heating. This is the same pan that I seared the meat in because I want those little bits of goodies in there that are browned off a bit. And in go the onion. We're going to stir that around for a few minutes, get them translucent, and then we'll continue with our gravy. Okay, the onions are done. Now, you know, this is my first attempt at making a video, and what I'm doing is I'm taking each shot and going to my computer and taking a look at it and learning things along the way. So what I want to come back to is flame versus electric. This is just as easy to do on any electric stove. All you do is move, if you want instant reduction of heat, just move the pan off the coil and move it back on. So I wanted to make sure we included all of those who are on electricity because it's just as easy, just as effective doing it that way. Okay, so the onions are translucent again. And now I'm going to add my garlic. Remember, adding the garlic last keeps it from getting too dark and burned, and that's just going to cook for about 30 seconds. Okay. Okay, now the garlic is now sweetened and soft, and I want to tip this up and show you that, you know, it looks kind of dark brown, and that's only because the onions and the garlic are picking up the color of all those rich goodies at the bottom of the pan. So I did not brown the onions. They're only translucent, but they are just picking up this beautiful color. Okay, so the next step is to add the liquid. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit, and in goes our, what do we call this? Apple cider, sort of, but good nonetheless. So I'm going to put that in the pan. And chicken stock. And these beautiful fresh thyme leaves from my garden. And raise that up to a boil. So the sauce is boiling away. And I just want to taste this a little bit. Oh, it's so good. It's got the onion flavor, the apple flavor. It's sweet. It's just, I'm so excited about this. And I think I want to put together a class called Cooking with Essential Oils. This has really sparked my imagination. So the next thing I want to do is put the spiral back in the pan. Put a lid on the pan, and it's going to go in the oven and bake for about 45 minutes to an hour at 350. Hi guys. Now, I have a question. How many times have you bought a beautiful turkey for Thanksgiving or whatever holiday, or a roast, or a chicken, a steak, lamb chop, whatever kind of protein you enjoy, and you do your preparation, stick it in the heat source, whether it's a barbecue or your oven or a broiler, and you pull it out and let it rest a little while and sit down at your beautiful dish, cut into it, and it's overcooked and it's dry and it's so frustrating. Now, there are 3 things that I refuse to go without in my kitchen. One is my knife, the other is my blender, and the third is this. Now, what this is an instant read thermometer, and I use it all the time when I'm making any kind of protein, because normally you'll read in a lot of recipes that you need to measure the internal temperature. In fact, the recipe I'm going to include on this class reads the internal temperature should be 160. But how do you know that? Unless you've got one of these. This sticks right into the product and instantly reads out on the little window or whatever little space you have in the kind you get, and it keeps all the guesswork out of it. You will pull out the perfect protein, the perfect steak, the perfect turkey every single time if you use this. So I've been nursing our spiral turkey breast along. I've checked it a few times and we're just about right at 160. So I'm going to check it one more time and then pull it out, and we'll continue making this amazing gravy. Okay, let's see how we're doing here. I'm going to open the oven and pull this out. Oh, it smells so good. I'm going to tip this top back so we don't get my face full of steam. There we go. And oh gosh, look at this. Now I'm going to take the meat thermometer and stick it into the thickest part of the roast. And we are at 160 exactly. Oh, I'm so excited. See, you just can't go wrong with a meat thermometer. I'm so happy. All right, I'm going to take this out and we'll start on the easy gravy. So the last step of this recipe is to do the gravy. The first thing I'm going to do is strain the vegetables into another pan. I want to get rid of all those pieces. So I'll make a nice, smooth gravy. Just press all those juices out. I'll bring this over here. And now turn on the heat. So in order to get the gravy a little thicker, I'm using tapioca powder. Now this is what I prefer over cornstarch. This has fewer carbs. It's easier to work with. It gives it a nice thickness without that kind of glassy sheen to it. It's just a wonderful thickener. I'm going to take a little bit of water and put it in. Just stir it up to make a paste. Kind of like cornstarch. Okay, we'll set that aside. The next thing I'm going to do is add the Dijon. This is going to give it a wonderful edge to it. When you talk about a balanced recipe, what it is you're trying to get all kinds of flavors in there, like sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and what we call umami. That's a new flavor. That's a kind of a beefy flavor. It's really wonderful. But right now, we're going for the sweet in the apples, the sour in the mustard. I'm going to put a little bit of low-fat sour cream in here, which again enhances that little sour flavor. It's got a little salt, so we're just about there on all that balanced flavor. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. Give it a stir. Add the low-fat sour cream with a creamy texture. And stir it again. I'm going to turn that heat down a little bit. Remember, I'm in control of the heat. The heat is not in control of me. And as I'm stirring it, I'm going to pour that mixture of tapioca flour in there, and we're going to thicken it up a little bit. So I'm just stirring it, heating it until it thickens up a bit. And you can really regulate how thick you want it. If you want it thicker than this does, just put a little bit extra tapioca flour in water and add it to it. Or if you want it a little thinner, just take a little bit out. But you see, this is coming along quite nicely and thickening up a bit. This is all you have to do for the gravy. Just this easy. I'm going to keep stirring it for a minute. Bring it up to the boil. Reduce it down a little bit. Again, I'm managing my heat up and down. And I continue to whisk. And it's getting pretty creamy. You can see it's gaining this beautiful sheen, and it's getting thicker, and it is absolutely divine. The flavor is just so good. So I'm going to let it thicken up a little bit more, and we're done with our dish. Well, here it is, our lean and green dinner that is fit for company. I would serve this to anybody coming to my house for dinner. So let's review. It's the spiral stuffed turkey breast, and the turkey is so good. It's moist, it's succulent, and that has a lot to do with that meat thermometer. Don't forget that one in your kitchen. The stuffing is delicious. It's really flavorful, and a little bit will go a long way. The outside crust of the turkey is fabulous, and it's a nice contrary texture to the creaminess of the turkey itself. Now that gravy, oh my gosh, what a success. I am so excited about this. If you recall, we did not use apple cider. This is for people on plan, and I substituted with a little apple oil or apple extract. You can get either one, and a little bit of stevia. Okay, it's so good. I'm so excited about it. It's creamy and it's sweet and savory, and it's picked up all the flavors of the aromatics and the garlic, the onions, and it's just over the top. So good. Now, I'm serving this with two other greens. One is the mashed cauliflower that I put some roasted garlic into, and the other is fresh green beans that has a little tiny bit of garlic and some lemon zest on top, a little squeeze of lemon juice, and a few little leaves of thyme. So here you have it, a beautiful lean and green, on plan, ready for company, and ready for the holidays. Oh, hi. Wasn't that fun? But I've got a really cool surprise for you. I measured that piece of turkey breast before I served it for dinner, and it was only 3 ounces. It looked so big. It was huge, but it was only 3 ounces. So I picked up my Optavia guide, and I'm looking on page 16, and I can have 3 more ounces of protein for lunch. That's so cool. So I can have a nice lunch with protein, come home, and have this beautiful meal. How easy is that? This is like the best program ever. I love this program. Don't forget your guide, page 16, if you have any questions. Now, in closing, as a health coach, and I am one of many with Optavia, we're part of an amazing community who will walk hip to hip with you and teach you how to fuel your body for life. We're committed, completely committed, to getting America healthy by transforming lives one healthy habit at a time. Now, as a culinary coach, it's my passion to instill confidence and enthusiasm and maybe a little passion of your own for creating beautiful and delicious meals that will not only support you on your journey to your health, but meals that you'll be proud to serve your family and your friends. I think that's pretty cool. So if you have any questions about Optavia, make sure you contact the person who sent you to this video or sent the video to you. And if you have found value in it, please like and share it, because that's how we spread the word. And you can look me up on Optavia.com or my Facebook page, Mary Stec's Coach in the Kitchen. If you have any questions at all, I'm going to post the recipe on my Facebook page. And remember, this is supposed to be interactive, so please contact me, message me, or send me an email, or just post on Facebook any of your questions, and we'll open up a discussion. It'll be really good. So all I can say is, here's to the best life you can give yourself. Eat well, live well, love well.